your buddy got hit going into a room and he's tied up with somebody in a corner, or you got driven into a couch or over an object. Well, you didn't clear your dead space in that room, and now there's another potential threat, either whether it's an adjacent door, behind another couch, or dead space in the room. And we'll put another role player over there as well, just to illustrate this. You have to clear that dead space to get over there and help your buddy first. We tell people, and this is not my saying, this is other guys that teach this stuff, is be able to survive on your own for 5 solid seconds. And 5 solid seconds of an all-out fight, is a long time. Just be able to survive at minimum. Don't get driven to the ground or over an object to make the situation worse. That 5 seconds is going to allow your teammate to clear that dead space and get over and help you. We know going in there's going to be an assault rifle, or there's pit bulls in the house. There's all sorts of different variables, and at the same time, you also might have innocent, uninvolved party in that house as well. I was looking around on different combatives programs, like what's going to work in a room in a CQB environment with a team. Everyone trains in an open mat space, which is good. It has its points, but as soon as you start putting furniture in a room and you don't know the layout ahead of time, that's going to change everything.
All right, guys, welcome back to another Gutter Fighting Secrets Tactical Podcast. Today is going to be Tactical Podcast number 33. We are here with John Kirkland of Side Control Tactics at Side Control Tactics on Instagram. I highly recommend you check out his page. It would be well worth your time indeed. So, John is a SWAT operator. He has been attached to federal task forces, I would assume, in the past, and he has a really, really tactical freaking resume here. So I'm going to read off for you guys what I can, and what I can't, we will just go from there and have John kind of fill us in on the blanks. So John served as a SWAT operator, approximately 400 tactical missions, which include the apprehension of dangerous and violent felons and other scumbag type people. Approximately 1,000 hours of SWAT training, which is freaking super cool. Hostage rescue, vehicle assaults, takedowns, bus assaults, high-risk warrant execution, helicopter assault operations, explosive breaches and entries, warrant executions, all of these types of things John has experience with. He is experienced in personal security details, PSD, and presidential QRF, that is, I would assume, quick response force. Direct action support for Secret Service CAT teams. He also, and that would be counter assault teams. He has experience in numerous QRF and direct action security details for counterterrorism. Experienced in numerous numerous engagements in training, and as well, I would assume he's had some sticky situations otherwise. Now, he is actually head combatives defensive tactics instructor for one of these agencies out there, and created authorized assault barrier combatives program, which is, I'm definitely going to get into that there. So previously cross-sworn with other agencies out there, and I'll leave that out, but training schools do include Special Operations and Combatives Program, Special Operations and Combatives Program, Special Operations and Combatives Instructor Certification, Lone Operator and Low Visibility Operations, Urban Seer, wow, SWAT Breaching Course, Federal SWAT Breaching Course, Gracie Survival Tactics for Law Enforcement, Gracie Survival Tactics for Law Enforcement, Military Instructor Level 1 and 2, CQB, and ultimate combatives, and just so much else here on your resume. I am also seeing that you've been involved in some human training federally, and just so much other cool stuff. So I'm going to freaking spend the next hour of the episode reading your resume, John. Welcome to the program, man. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, good. Thanks for having me on. You make it sound a lot cooler than I would, so I appreciate it.
Well, like warriors always need to be humble in some way, but at the same point, this is a very impressive resume, so I'm excited to have you on. Can we jump right into this? Because this is burning in the back of my mind. What is human training like?
So I have limited experience with it. I was more exposed to it through some courses that were offered on a task force I was attached to, but it's it's not in my personality to be really good at it. I'm not a very outgoing person, and it requires that you develop that. And it's just it's a way basically you're gathering human intelligence. You go out and talk to people, and you're putting pieces of that puzzle together on an individual, and it's being collected from different sources. That'd be the best way I can explain it.
Gotcha. James Bond type of stuff.
Yeah, I was nowhere near at that level, but yeah, essentially that's what it would be.
So when it comes to being a door kicker, man, what is that like? It's high adrenaline, high pace type of stuff, I would assume. And I would assume at times there's kind of, some slow, methodical types of stuff in there as well. Can you tell us what your experience working at all this SWAT stuff has been like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is from a law enforcement standpoint. So it's, our ROEs or our rules are obviously much different than we would see in the military. But, a lot of our stuff is for armed subjects, that are either barricaded inside of the house or some type of structure or vehicle. And, when it doesn't meet a patrol resolution or patrol response, then we get called out for that. And our goal is to ultimately try and resolve the issue peacefully. And the majority of the times we were successful in that. We just have a lot more training than your standard, patrol officer or deputy would have. We have all the cool toys and budgets and things like that. So we get lots of extra training to put into it. So, but it is a lot of fun. It's definitely the best thing I've done so far in law enforcement. I continue to do it. And thankfully, I'm in a position to do that full time. That's my only job. A lot of departments, you get to split your time between two different jobs. And I did that for a long time. I was a detective. Previously, I was assigned to different federal task forces. But now, thankfully, I get to just focus on doing SWAT, and I really enjoy it. And I love teaching and also mentoring some of the new guys that are coming up as well.
What's the schedule like that you work? Do you work 12-hour shifts or?
So now, it's with everything going on, it's been all over the place. But typically, we have a couple different squads, and we try to have some overlap in there. My schedule's not, it's not too bad. It's a standard, Tuesday through Friday, 4-10s, 7 to 5, 5-ish. And, we have obviously training. We try and get in training several times per week in our smaller groups. Everyone's expected to stay in shape, work out. Most of the guys on the team train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, wrestling. We have we have an All-American wrestler on our team. We have guys with wrestling backgrounds. But yeah, it's, we're also on an on-call schedule. So, those full response call-outs always happen when you're either, at the beach with your kid, with your wife or girlfriend, so you're expected to respond to those call outs as well. And those are usually after hours when it's not convenient. So,
I hope they're paying you for that stuff, man.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I said, I hope they're paying you for that stuff.
Oh yeah. Of course. Yeah. It's good overtime for sure. We get treated well there.
So what was SWAT school like?
SWAT school was, it was a lot of fun. I don't come from a military background, so some of the guys, we have a good mix of military and guys that just went to college and maybe have athletic backgrounds, and then that was more of me. So it was a really good experience. We run a really good school where I'm at. We're a regional team, so there's a lot of other teams that send their guys through our school as well. We've actually had the pleasure of having teams from outside the country, such as Brazil, Mexico, and other teams send their guys up through our school, and it was a lot of fun. It really was. It was it was several weeks long, but you get to you go home at the end of the day as well. So it was a lot of fun. It was a blast, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I bet it is, man. So last week I had John Riddle of Riddle Defense on, and he spent 16 years with SWAT himself. he was telling us a little bit about the qualification course down in Florida. And it was 2 days, and they just smoked. Was it the similar type of thing for you to qualify for SWAT? They just smoked the crap out of you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked that. So yeah, so we have an initial assessment that we do, and that's just to kind of like get you have to have a baseline, and that's consists of it's a 1-day initial assessment where you're doing, demonstrate your ability to rappel. We have a swim competency test that you're going to do, with BDUs, top and bottom, shoes on. There's multiple shooting courses, obstacle course, PT test as well. It's a full day, and they're pretty smoked by the end of it. After that, after that, you if you make it past that, you go to a structured panel interview, and that's when they start looking at we get guys with military backgrounds, so they're going over the schools you've been to, what's your training experience, what's your reputation. That's a big thing. We reach out, we talk to their supervisors, figure out what type of people they are. From there, we weed down, and then after that, you go to a psychological assessment, and then if you make it past that, then you go to a 2-week selection process. Yeah. So then basically it's 2 weeks, and there's different things we have put in place during that that help evaluate them, and it's pretty thorough. And from there, let's say we have 8 that made it to selection, we might only be taking 3, and it depends, but it's a good process. After that, you're on a probationary training status for a year. And during that year, you're expected to go to all search warrants, call outs, and that ranges anywhere from 150 and up to the highest I've seen 300 per year. So we're busy, and you're responsible for a lot of other FNG kind of stuff, all the new guy stuff. So after that, if you make it through that year, then you get invited to come onto the team. So it's a thorough process, and I appreciate it being that.
So what advice could you give to guys out there who are either patrolmen or just out of the academy or haven't even gone through it yet, and they are saying, I want to do this?
The big thing is just go for it. You have to take initiative, and I don't know what it is. You kind of find the guys, that you work with that you want to stick to, and get like training buddies and go out there and hit your PT test together, because as you know, if you're going with somebody else, you're going to go harder. Yeah. Find that group of guys that you want to go to hot calls with. Get a good reputation. That's the biggest thing. And put yourself out there and reach out and go to schools. Like I was checking out you've been to a lot of good schools, and it's just you because you're interested in it. And it's the same thing. And a lot of times, if you're a new guy at a department, no one knows you. They're not going to pay and invest yet to send you to this stuff. I'll be honest. I had to take out a couple of no interest credit cards and put training on it, and I paid it off, but it was well worth it. And that's how I was able to get exposed to some of these better, like kind of higher level schools, and then you meet people at these schools, and it just kind of goes, it explores out from there. But just putting yourself out there, investing in yourself by going to training, even if you have to pay for it out of pocket, that's okay. And just having a good attitude and a good reputation.
You're so right about meeting people at those schools, and they introduce you. Well, have you been to this guy's program? Have you done this over here? That's really how you hear about the cool stuff.
Yep, 100%. Yep, so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Now, training as far as a cop, there's a lot of guys out there who say, hey, if I'm not getting paid to train, I'm not training.
I'm laughing because I have this conversation all the time with people at work, and I was talking to a friend of mine about this a couple nights ago, and it's actually a female deputy that she invests a lot of time and money into buying her own ammunition, own rifle, paying to go to different trainings, finding training groups. So social media is huge now. There's legit training groups that are meeting up at good ranges, and you get guys from all sorts of backgrounds there that they're doing it for free, and they could easily charge a few $100s a day per person, no problem. They're doing it for free. I just don't understand. I never have understood why you wouldn't take advantage of this. Especially you're getting paid to enforce the law, and you have a badge and a gun. It's your responsibility to seek out this training. It makes no sense to me why people don't do it.
Yeah, I agree. It's the same way to a certain degree on the fire department too. You know, guys, they do the bare minimum, but you know, it's the guys who really want to train that I want to be going inside with any day of the week, and the guys who do the bare minimum, you know, we'll see. But I think that honestly, dude, like when you talk about going on to a SWAT team, especially doing more of the high level things that you've accomplished, you want the personality in those things that's willing to go out there and spend their own money and do their own thing on their own time to really get above and beyond the rest of the crowd.
Oh yeah, yeah. You have to, and you know you do, and you could probably attest to this. You get what you pay for when it comes to training.
Yeah.
And you know, if I'm going to go learn from somebody, I want to first of all learn from someone that's qualified and has been there and done that. They've already been down the path. I'm willing to pay for their knowledge and their sacrifices they've already made to better myself. You know, but you have to pay, and a lot of times, frankly, you know, some of these groups they cut you breaks. It opens up doors to so many other things. You have to look at the bigger picture on networking, who you're going to meet, and what you're going to learn as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Networking is such a crucial thing, and it doesn't matter if you've been doing it for years or if you're just getting started. I think that the more contacts you have, ultimately, the better off you're going to be.
Absolutely, 100%. And that's fun. I didn't know it carried over also into the fire rescue world too. But apparently, it's the same issue you're seeing. You know,
yeah, 100%. You know, I mean, I think with any job, there's guys who, you know, they're in it for the job. Then there's guys who are in it because they love it, and then there's kind of the in between. But you know, some guys just want to go out there and train because they want to better themselves. They want to be the best at whatever it is that they're doing. And then some guys just simply don't feel that way. They want to go and they get the job done, get their paycheck, go home. And it's just, I think, you know, it really depends on personality a lot.
Yeah. And other things too, I think, you know, your outside hobbies and interests should support your job, especially if you're doing something like fire rescue, law enforcement, or military. You know, whether it's you take up competitive shooting, that's going to make you a better officer, SWAT operator. Take up Brazilian jiu-jitsu, boxing, wrestling, something. It's a type of sport that's going to keep you in shape, that trains you for combatives, stress inoculation. Everything should support your job, I think, as long as you enjoy doing it. But, you know, the same thing you've heard, you know, if I'm not getting paid to do it, I'm not going to do it, or it's too expensive. And those are just excuses. It's, what, $90, $100 a month for a BJJ membership?
Yeah, exactly. You know, plus too, guys need to take advantage of their department, right? They need to like go to their chief and say, "Hey, I really want to take this course. I'm a little thin in the pocket right now. Could you help me out with it?" It's not out of bounds that the chief would say, "Yeah, I got you, man. Like, go ahead, I'll pay for it."
Yep. We thankfully where I'm at, we have a pretty supportive training department, training division, very progressive. You know, we actually host the GST courses over here where I'm at, thankfully, and we send people to it. A lot of times, you know, even if the budget's tight, they've always, I can't complain. They've always worked with me and a lot of other people too. You know, even if the budget's super tight, they find ways to get money, or, you know, they're like, look, we'll give you a vehicle to take. So we'll cover your hotel and half your tuition. They really try to meet you somewhere. But there's so much things the departments have to purchase and buy. It's tough to invest also in training. But ours does a good job, and we have a lot of black belts at our department, or higher level black belts, guys with professional boxing backgrounds, and we teach classes at the agency that are offered, you know, every day or several times per week. And also we teach in-service training, 40-hour courses that are geared around combatives, you know, fighting in kit or with your gear on, fighting in or around a vehicle. So we do all that stuff as well, but it's still important to send guys to outside schools as well.
Now, you mentioned fighting with a kit on, and that's got to be a little bit different than rolling around in a gi or, you know, a no gi.
100%. Yeah. And you know, it was interesting because when I was new on our team, there was another senior guy who I respect a lot. He ran the defensive tactics or combatives program, depending on what you want to call it. And he turned it over to me because he was promoting off the team, and I was honored that he did it, but it's a big responsibility, and I didn't really, I was looking around on, different combatives programs, like what's going to work in a room, in a CQB environment with a team, with a kit, weapon. You have compliant, non-compliant people. Like what works, and your end user is not going to be somebody that's, that can train every day of the week. So it has to be simple, effective techniques that are going to work and that are easy to recall under stress. So I did a lot of research. I really geeked out on it, to be honest with you. I came around across, I think I mentioned to you before, Greg Thompson. He developed the SOCP program, or the Special Operations Combatives program. And that's kind of the like a Salter. It's the baseline of Salter combative system that military special operations uses. And obviously we're not military special operations, we're police, but CQB is CQB at the end of the day. Rules of engagement are going to be different, but we're still having to deal with people with a kit on, and most of the people are compliant, and we also do get some non-compliant people. We just need ways to control them and also still maintain whatever we're doing in a room to keep the integrity of our CQB model. And it really has answered pretty much everything. Every issue that we were having before is kind of clearing up now. And again, too, everyone trains in an open mat space, which is good. It has its points, but as soon as you start putting furniture in a room and you don't know the layout ahead of time, that's going to change everything as well. And he's been doing this for 15, 20 years, working with some of the best teams in the world. And so I was honored to kind of be able to go to a lot of his courses and become an instructor as well, and just kind of learn and pick up some of this stuff, because the path is already made. So I'm just trying to soak up as much knowledge as possible and pass it up to our guys.
Special Operations Combatives program, man. This is something that's fascinated me forever. And what fascinates me about it is, how do you take a guy who, like you were saying, has limited time and limited ability to train, and get him to a level where he's able to go in there and do his job effectively? And I think that it's such a scientific process of how to create a combatives program for a guy who maybe not like you and I, who, we love martial arts. We love hand-to-hand combat. But some guys do it, just because they need to have it in case it happens. Can you give us a little bit of insight at maybe, what's that process like of taking a guy from, 40 hours of training and that's it, to a higher level of competency?
Well, the first thing, and you recognize this too, is getting guys to understand. You have to kind of change the training mindset that, look, we're not going to get two guys. We're not going to get you in here, put boxing gloves on you, and say go. Like, because most guys, they don't want to get hurt. Because if you get hurt, you're going to go on light duty. You can't work overtime, all that kind of stuff. So the main thing is really changing kind of the mindset and the way you train. Like, we're going to start with a baseline and get everybody up to a certain level. Then we're going to start ramping it up with more force on force and scenario based training. Really, the big thing is the scenarios. Scenario based training. Once you have your baseline, if you're keeping it 80% scenario based training with force on force, even if it's not all out, as you enter a room, you're getting blindsided by somebody. It can just be you're clearing a room and you have to deal with a semi-compliant person that's in the way. That's the majority of what we're dealing with in law enforcement. It's just semi-compliant people that might be in the way. And we need to think of a way to control them safely that's not going to hurt them. It's also not going to hurt us. So we put them in these scenarios with minimal baseline training to show them first the need. I think kind of reverse engineer it. So they see the need, like, okay, our CQB model is breaking down because I don't know what to do when I'm running into a room, trying to get to a point of domination in the room, and somebody's in my way. I'm holding a long gun. I'm just sitting there yelling at them. But now I'm not doing my job as a SWAT operator. I'm not, getting to a point of domination, clearing sectors of fire, dominating the room. I'm not doing any of that because I don't know how to deal with this person. And we just give them simple solutions, and then the light bulb starts clicking, and they're like, oh, I can do that with minimal training. That works for me. And then you start building from there, really.
I would assume that all it could potentially take for a team that doesn't know a lot about this entry combative stuff to get stuck would maybe be one non-compliant guy in the middle of the room, and then you're totally all bunched up over there, right?
you're all bunched up over there. And then when we put these scenarios, that will be kind of our shiny object, as we call it. And all those guys that are going in the room, the untrained response is you focus on that shiny object, because your buddy got hit going into a room and he's tied up with somebody in a corner, or you got driven into a couch or over an object. Well, you didn't clear your dead space in that room, and now there's another potential threat, either whether it's an adjacent door, behind another couch, or dead space in the room. And we'll put another role player over there as well, just to illustrate this. You have to clear that dead space to get over there and help your buddy first. We tell people, and this is not my saying, this is other guys that teach this stuff, is be able to survive on your own for 5 solid seconds. And 5 solid seconds of an all-out fight, is a long time. Just be able to survive at minimum. Don't get driven to the ground or over an object to make the situation worse. That 5 seconds is going to allow your teammate to clear that dead space and get over and help you.
Mm-hmm. What's it like going into a room where you don't know what's on the other side? It's got to be an exhilarating experience.
I mean, it is, and a lot of times, just like any teams, they're getting a briefing prior to, and a lot of times, these guys, their criminal histories are atrocious. Sometimes, we've hit houses where people have 120 felony arrests or 120 felony charges with 5 convictions. 2 of them are for homicide, and they're still out walking around. And we know going in, there's going to be an assault rifle, or there's pit bulls in the house. There's all sorts of different variables, and at the same time, you also might have innocent, uninvolved party in that house as well. So it is exciting. It's definitely a fun job. It's rewarding because you're going in there to get that person, and a lot of times you're going in there to get them, and they're facing pretty serious charges. So it's just it's fun to be a part of that.
Yeah, it's got to be a hell of a feeling going in there, knowing that the guy on the other end is, he's going to go to jail for the rest of his life, and he might not want to go.
Yeah, for sure. And then that's where the whole training experience and everything comes into play too. And I think overall, people think SWAT's very dangerous, and it can be, but I think that your standard patrol officer, I think that's the most dangerous job. At least you're going in with a team that trains together very, very regularly. You have good weapons, body armor, you have armor. You're utilizing outside teams with flashbangs or breaking and clearing windows. So you're attacking one problem as a team. So I feel very confident with everyone I work with, and that they're going to do their job, and I'm going to do mine.
I feel like that's a really important thing, is feeling confident with the guys who are on your team, the guy who's directly behind you, and even the guy who's directly behind him. Because if you didn't trust them, I feel like it might make you second guess yourself a little bit more.
Oh, 100%,
yeah.
100%. And that's I'm sure you deal with it too in first responder world as well. You have these debriefs after critical incidents, or after we do execute a search warrant, and we have hot washes, and that's where it's like there's no rank involved, and that's where kind of the gloves come off, and you say you own up to your mistakes, and if you saw other mistakes, you call them out. After that, that's it. And if the same mistakes keep repeating, then there's obviously issues, and we try and fix that. But all in all, yeah, it's just you got to give honest feedback to your guys that you work with, and that's how you kind of also help develop trust and trust each other.
Yeah, I really think communication is key, especially when it comes to working with a team.
For sure. Yep, 100%. Just open communication, just being direct and candid with each other.
Yeah. Now, let's circle back around a little bit to side control, because this is a great page, man. And what are you? Do you go for belts in jiu-jitsu? Are you a black belt?
Oh no, I'm not a black belt. I'm a purple belt. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been training for a while, and then in between a couple of different injuries as well, took a hiatus, and then my trainee year on SWAT, my first year, I took that whole year off. So, I've been training in Thai boxing and stuff simultaneously with it. So,
yeah, purple belt's no small feat, and I've been doing it for about 3 years, and I'm still a blue belt. So it's I get it. It's for those of you out there who don't know or haven't heard me talk about it yet, it can take upwards of 2-3 years to get your first belt in jiu-jitsu. And I've heard guys who are black belts say, yeah, it took me 15 years to get that damn black belt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully that might be me. Hopefully it won't. But yeah, that's and on the same token, a lot of the older school guys, and they, you hear about guys getting their black belts in 5 years, but then you look at their hands, and they can't even close their hands because they train so much. But yeah, and I try and mix in a lot of like striking and stuff with the jiu-jitsu. I try and stick more with like the traditional like self-defense aspect of it. And I'm sure you could probably attest, I feel like jiu-jitsu in a lot of ways can get too far into the sport realm.
Absolutely.
Away from its roots. And I really appreciate the self-defense aspect of it.
I've always been very much the same way. And, while I'm rolling, I'm always thinking about in my head, I could strike him here. I could, eye gouge him here if I needed to. The school I go to is very lenient. The professor is, as long as I don't gouge or bite or anything or hit someone in the face, okay. But, I know also I've trained at a couple of schools, and some schools you go to are very soft. They don't want you to hurt anybody, and it's too dangerous to do, leg locks or whatever. And, yeah, I think you know what I'm talking about.
And the legs, that's half the body that you're not allowed to attack. And as long as you're training with good guys, good training partners, you shouldn't be getting. I mean, accidents happen, but you shouldn't be, heel hooking a guy and rolling, just F it and blowing his ACL out. It's like if you start if you are catching my heel, I'm tapping. I need to go to work. But I train all with good training partners, and yeah, we'll put on MMA training gloves, like 6 to 8 ounce gloves, and just do marking strikes or train lightly. And that adds a whole other aspect. And then, you start adding in duty gear. Like one of the courses I teach at our department, the accumulation, like the last day of it, and we, they're getting worked all week. They're pretty sore. And then towards the end, now we're putting them with their with whatever they're going to wear on their normal job. So, we'll have them come in with their body armor, and their duty belt. And then we'll put them out, and then we'll have them grapple in different environments. We'll put them obviously in a static mat room. We'll even introduce, the electric shock knives into it as well. We'll put them in confined spaces with simulated furniture. We'll put them on their backs on a couch, and they're mounted. And then we'll have them grapple outside in the grass. We can't do the concrete, obviously, but the grass is the next best thing. And that's where you really start seeing what techniques translate or transfer over to now you have this gear on. And I'm a big proponent, if the department's allowed, to carry some type of fixed blade in your trauma plate insert as well. So if you get mounted, you can't access any of your tools. How many hits does it take in a street fight before you get knocked out? And what's going to happen if you're a police officer and you get knocked out? They have access to your weapons. And I'm a big proponent of these guys carrying some type of fixed blade, not a clasp, but a fixed blade they can access quickly and get you if necessary, if they're ever put on their back. Because that will make a black belt a white belt pretty quick when they start getting picked with that thing. So.
Yeah, I'm of the similar mindset when it comes to self-defense for a life or death situation. Is if you got something, use it. Obviously, stay within the bounds of legal, parameters and all of that. But I've always been told personally, it's a weapon of some kind that ends the fight, not necessarily with your hands. Yeah,
I agree 100% with that. And the other aspects too, your street fight, you're on your back. His buddies might be coming. To help them out as well. Like we don't advocate. The GS, the Gracie survival tactics. They say learn to fight on the ground so you don't have to. I agree 100% with that. If you can avoid getting into some type of grappling situation, obviously do so. That's why stand up is so important. You have to have some type of basic stand up. I think I know a lot of jiu-jitsu schools require their guys to take minimum stand up to have a baseline just to prevent from getting knocked out. And for law enforcement, it's different because I can't think of any situations where I've been in a fight with somebody where I secured them while they're still fighting in a standing position. It just doesn't work. You have to take them to the ground. But it needs to be on your terms and not their terms. And if it's on their terms, you need to know how to either get back to your feet or quickly end that fight, because you don't know what's going to happen at that point.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the fact about. I'm glad you brought up the fact about his buddy stepping in, is because, you know, I did a lot of reality-based defense before I got into jiu-jitsu and MMA, and I always it had been drilled in my head, don't go to the ground because his buddy's going to sneak up and get you in some respect. You know, it's not until afterwards where I started doing a lot of jiu-jitsu where I really found the value in it. But I'm glad that somebody out there is teaching guys, yeah, listen, when you're on the ground, yeah, obviously you're on the ground. Like, you need to know how to survive, but keep that situational awareness, I guess you could say, in mind.
Yeah, you have to. And the other aspect too is, you know, if they know you're a law enforcement officer, when we're talking from a law enforcement standpoint, if they're taking you to the ground, they're exhibiting advanced fighting techniques, they know you're a law enforcement officer, there's a lot of indicators there that, you know, that the fight's not going to go well for you if you don't end it quickly. Mm-hmm. And the stuff we teach, you know, it always needs to end with that person in handcuffs. I believe, like the GST curriculum, or Great Survival Tactics curriculum, teaches, you know, we don't teach techniques that don't end with the person in handcuffs, because at the end of the day, that's our job, is to place them into custody. And if it doesn't end with the person in handcuffs, we just don't teach it.
So this is something it makes your job difficult, I feel like, because you guys can't square off with someone and box them. I mean, it just wouldn't look good. But when it comes down to it for you guys, it's all going to ultimately be a wrestling match or a grappling match in some respect. Am I correct in saying that?
I agree 100% with that. And it's fighting from that clinch position, or that pummeling position, or your bicep tie-ups and stuff like that, like basic Greco-Roman wrestling or wrestling techniques pay dividends in that clinch fight. And you know, in that clinch position, whether it's a tie clinch or your wrestler, your 50-50 tie-ups, your bicep tie-ups, we don't in the sport, it's okay to take your time in those positions. In the street, or, you know, in a reality, you know, realistic situation, you need to figure out a solution to that clinch quickly. It's kind of a fork in the road, if you will, because if there is a weapon that's involved, if that person has a weapon that's concealed on them, the longer you sit there and in those tie-up positions, I think more likely against a committed person that weapon is going to get introduced. And then now you're fighting for a weapon, and that adds in a whole other gamut of problems as well. And the other thing is, we see a lot when we put our officers or deputies like in these scenarios, is they're going to a weapon too quickly without, you've heard the saying, you know, position before submission. Of course. It's the same concept with, you know, the submission is introducing the weapon. But a lot of times there's videos online of deputies or officers getting their weapons taken from them. There was a video, I think it was out in California, you've probably seen it. There's a female officer in a fight with a suspect, and I don't recall what the charges were or anything like that. But she introduced the weapon when it was not appropriate to. Not that it wasn't justified, but it wasn't appropriate. She didn't have control of the distance management, and that subject was able to disarm her, fire rounds at her, somehow missed, thank God. And she got away, and responding officers got there and ultimately ended up killing him. But, you know, we do see a lot of times, you know, guys going to a weapon too quickly, even when it's justified, but they don't have the proper distance management yet, and they're making a bad situation even worse.
And this is something that I see a lot with CCW guys as well, is that they're too reliant on their weapon. You know, yeah. I carry a Glock. I got 2 extra mags on me. Why the hell do I need that Krav Maga crap?
Yeah.
You know, it's not the right mentality, I don't think.
It's not the right mentality. And you know, I'm embarrassed even to say this, but it's true. You know, I hear it all the time, because you try and get certain people to train, and they're like, you know, I don't need that. I don't need to train in that. I'll just shoot them. I'm like, well, first of all, you might not be justified in shooting them. Secondly, you might not have a chance. I tell them, you come out to some of these schools, and you know, we'll we'll put a 135-pound female on you that will give you a lot of problems. If not, just end your day if you wanted to. But you're not getting to your weapon against some of these people. I can promise you that. And you need to have, if you don't have a basic skill set and have the answer, the solutions to a lot of these problems. You don't know, as you know, like you go to some of these schools and it looks could be deceiving. You don't know who, some of these guys' backgrounds or girls' backgrounds, they can mess you up bad. It's humbling. I love jiu-jitsu. That's why, it's very humbling.
I've been talking to girls before class and kind of macking it with them, and this and that. And then I get on the mat with them, man. I get humbled real quick sometimes. And that's, like you said, that's, jiu-jitsu for you.
Yes. Yep. And then back to kind of circling back to what you were saying too, with boxing or any of your stand-up arts, the saying, anyone has a puncher's chance. I believe that, if you, and especially if you're talking about a street fight where his buddy's coming off your right-hand side or your six, basically, and you don't see it coming. I don't want to, if I can avoid standing toe-to-toe with somebody, that person gets a lucky shot and I'm out. If I can close that distance and manage that fight through distance management, I think it's a lot better. But you have to have some understanding of what that person's doing and be able to avoid getting knocked out as well.
Yeah, and I think that some type of striking game is so key when it comes to fighting, because there are fights that never go to the ground. Like you said, one guy knocks another guy out, boom, end of story. Then there's other fights that go on for a few minutes, and it's freaking probably exhausting. So you just can't know. You keep referring to something that is so relevant to law enforcement specifically, civilians as well, but law enforcement specifically, is that it might not be justified. It might not be appropriate. Before I ask this question, can you go into quickly for us, what does justified mean versus what is appropriate mean?
Yeah, and I'll even add one thing to that. Even if it's justified, it doesn't look good because some of the stuff that's justified, it still is going to lack. It's going to lack appeal. And at the end of the day, you have to do what you have to do to go home. And I would never. I don't like second guessing people's actions unless it's just very, very egregious. Because especially if I'm not there in that moment. But there again, going back to jiu-jitsu, the reason I like jiu-jitsu so much, especially for law enforcement, is because it's the gentle art. You can control somebody, completely control and dominate that person with using minimal force, and it looks good. And at the end of the day, that's very important. But as far as like justification of different techniques, but most departments follow some type of a use of force continuum or a use of force matrix, if you will. And generally speaking, it basically allows for, at minimum, meeting that suspect or that citizen or individual's resistance level and going one above necessary to gain compliance. But the hard part we see is people that don't train in combat sports or don't have like a wrestling background, is that stress inoculation. Think of the first time you were in a fight. It's completely different than now. If you're going to go out and get into a scrap with somebody, you're going to be pretty relaxed probably. Yeah. And what we see when we start seeing these over uses of force are, law enforcement officers that they don't. It's a training issue more often than not, where they don't have that stress inoculation put in place. They're not thinking clearly what they're doing right then, and they're amped up and they're in the moment. And that lack of training, it comes out there, and you don't, and you can't have it come out there because, for one, you might use too much force, or you might underreact, and that can cost you your life, someone in the public, innocent civilian's life, or fellow coworker as well. That's why I'm so big on training and guys and girls getting out there and training at schools and just being humble. I tell people, I get beat up, several times per week. Every time I go train jiu-jitsu, I win some and I lose some, but it's stress inoculation. And I've been in scraps at work, and I think clearly. I know what I'm doing, and I'm not concerned about it.
Yeah, that's the thing about law enforcement specific stuff, is that you guys really have to, you're always going to be on camera in some respect, whether it's a bystander filming you or, you know, your own body camera or whatever it is. Maybe it's in the patrol car. I don't know, but you're always going to be on camera. And if you make it look ugly, even like you're saying, it may be justified, potentially could get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and you know, even if you know, at the end of the day, you know, if you're doing techniques that are justified, you're going to be backed by your department. But at what cost is that coming? You know, I'm not even referring to the incident that's going on right now, because you know that clearly was inappropriate use of force. But other incidents too, you know, where the result, the officer used justifiable force, but the technique looked bad, or you know, it lacked jury appeal, as we'll call it, and then the result is, you know, you have public distrust, which is horrible, and then you have all the rioting, the looting, and it's a snowball effect. And a lot of times, you know, we don't do a good enough job, I think, also at kind of bridging that gap with the public and letting them understand, you know, kind of what our job entails as well. And, you know, a few bad apples, they do ruin it for everybody, unfortunately. But again, train. That's my big thing, is we need more training, and guys and girls need to take it upon themselves and invest in themselves as well.
Well said. Well said. You mentioned the bad apples, and I'd be remiss if I didn't at least bring this up in some respect, is the incident that we're seeing right now with George Flynn. And, you know, look, I don't expect to get, you know, law enforcement guys' opinion on this, but at the same point, I think we all can agree that this was just unjustified, completely unjustified. How has it been out on the street for you? Has there been a lot more hostility towards the uniform in general, or have you seen some people kind of saying, we know it's not all cops that are like this?
Overall, I would say my experience, you know, personally, has been people, they don't, as a whole, they're not condoning this rioting and the stuff that's going on. I haven't had too many bad experiences. You know, where I'm at, we are having a lot of the civil unrest and a lot of the issues going on. A lot of times these people are coming from out of town, they're paid protesters, and there's other issues that are going on as well. There's definitely it hurts us as a whole. There's less trust, but at the end of the day, you have, you know, pretty much all law enforcement's looking at that and saying, you know, what was that? What technique? It just doesn't make sense, especially, you know, that's not even a good control position, really. You know, I did a video recently with you know, my instructor. It's getting to a crab ride position on the guy's back. You're controlling his hips. That's how you would control somebody. It's safe. Another thing is too, frankly, just from being in those situations where everybody has their phones out and they're starting to surround you, I'd want to get that guy out of that situation anyways. I don't want to sit there and be yelled at by the public. You know, let's get him in a car. Let's get him out of here. So that was, when I saw that, you know, first reaction, it looks bad. And, you know, whether, I don't know if that's a technique that department is approved of or not. I've heard that it is. I heard that it is. I don't know, honestly. I could speak, you know, where you know, I'm at, in Florida. That's, you know, knee crossing the spine is a no-no. And they teach that, you know, at base level academy, combatives, defensive tactics. That's a no-no at any part of the spine, really, unless you're at deadly force, and then it's a scrap, and anything's, you know, pretty much anything goes. But other than that, for just simple control, knee doesn't cross the spine, and you avoid a lot of those issues anyways.
Yeah, it's weird to me how, you know, it went on for what, like 10 minutes, and, you know, it was just kind of prolonged. I don't know. A lot of it it's weird to me, and I don't know, because I wasn't there, and I don't know, you know, either party, any party involved. I can't specifically say either, but, you know, I think to anyone who's done jiu-jitsu, and especially law enforcement guys, it's just something weird about it, right?
Yeah, it doesn't look good, and you know.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I knew it was going to be bad.
Yeah. And you've got, you know, before this, we saw, I think a lot of departments are now banning the rear naked choke. Is that right?
Yeah, a lot of departments are, and depending on where you're at, for my department, a rear naked choke is it's already at deadly force. So we've never had it below deadly force. I have my opinions on it. I think that I'd feel comfortable with it being lower. However, um, you know, you have to, if you're going to incorporate that with a department at anything below deadly force, there needs to be extensive continuous training on it. And as a whole, I just don't logistically, I don't know if that could be done to get, 3,000 sworn officers to train continuously in jiu-jitsu. Because it could be a very safe technique for like one of us to apply. No problem. Yeah, I'm sure you've been choked out. I've been choked out, and Kim right back too. And it's kind of funny at first, but you get somebody that doesn't train jiu-jitsu, but they know how to apply your rear naked choke, but they don't know when to let it go, and they don't have the stress inoculation, so they're amped up. It's going to be a bad day, and again, it looks bad. It can look bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. To have cops choking people probably isn't the best thing. Also, I'm assuming, too, if you slip up, maybe you put the forearm across the throat, start crushing that trachea a little bit, maybe not good either. So,
yeah,
it really is about training.
And that's been a big concern, too, 'cause when we've tested some of this stuff. You're also adding on, some type of level of body armor with the officer. So now, normally you have a lot of mobility to reach around and get elbow alignment with the chin and not have your forearm across the trachea. Now you start adding on this body armor and this other stuff, and everything really does change with those techniques. And you're going to start seeing more likelihood that the forearm's going to come across that trachea, and it's going to be a bad day.
Yeah, it's interesting how you're rolling and the rear naked choke. With another jiu-jitsu practitioner, it's almost easier sometimes to get them in that RNC than it is for some freaking out person who doesn't have any idea what's going on.
Yeah, we white belt rage, right? It's what we call it. It's 100% true. I'd rather, one of the things we do with all of our new hires, we'll bring them out. And these guys are girls have already gone through the police academy 6 months. And now they're going through an orientation phase with our department, learning how we do stuff and our policies. But we put them through a day of ground fighting training. It's an exposure class, and really the goal is to show them a deficiency in their training, and then hopefully we preach to them at the end about this, but hopefully you guys go out there and you start training. You sign up at school. Where I'm at in Florida, we have a huge concentration of jiu-jitsu and MMA gyms. There's guys here that are 7-8 time world champions. I'm in a very good area for jiu-jitsu, and they offer great rates for everyone. Anyways, before I get off on a rant, basically we teach them a day full of techniques. We don't expect them to retain a lot of this stuff, but then we at the end we make them grapple with the instructors, and we put them in 2-minute rounds. That's it. First round, we don't submit them. We just pressure them. And then at the end, the other round, we submit them, and we're not doing anything crazy or hurting anybody. But 2 minutes, it's good training for us too, because all their stuff is untrained behaviors, and you get people that are spazzing out. I'm more scared to roll with them than a high-level black belt, because at least a high-level black belt's going to let go when they get something. Yeah. Instructors, we're getting corneal abrasions, broken noses, all sorts of stuff on us. So, but yeah, it's good stuff. And usually, we'll get some people that go sign up and they start that path of training. More often than not, we'll have a class of 50. Maybe we'll get 1 or 2 out of that class that initially goes and signs up.
Wow. Unfortunately. Yeah, it's crazy. How many people have come through our doors at where I am, and man, they're there a week, 2 weeks, if that, and they're gone. You never see them again. Once they take that and they see how crazy it is, they can't hack it, dude.
Once you see you're not getting your black belt in 2 years, they're not interested in it, and they're the ones that need it the most, really. Yeah. And another thing is too, with police culture, I talk a lot about this with my buddies and stuff too. Police culture, in a lot of ways, you have there's guys and girls that have type A personalities. They don't like to lose. and they don't want to look bad, or they're scared of looking bad. So I try and create a training environment where everybody's humble, and I get other instructors in there where we could dominate the person the whole time if we wanted to. But they're not learning. So we'll pressure them, but if they're working a technique, we'll let them work it. Because at the end of the day, I don't want the person to feel defeated. I want them to come back and train the next day, and then be able to come back the next day, and then just get them on that path and then turn them loose. But if you get guys in there and you're just beating the crap out of them from day one, they're not coming back. And that's, fighters need that for sure, but they're already conditioned to, and they're tough. They can take it. The person that's never been in a fight in their life, but now they're carrying a gun and wearing a badge, we need to ease them into it. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me, like you just said, somebody who's carrying a gun and a badge and now they're a warrior, but they've never been in a fight in their life. And there's plenty of cops out there, new recruits just like that. What would you say to somebody, maybe they're fresh out of the academy, they just got hired, they know that they're pretty fresh still, they don't have much fighting experience, they're concerned, they want to be good at what they do. Could you give them any advice?
I would say, before you get out there and you get around any of the salty dogs, the salty cops that have been doing the job 20 plus years and they don't need jiu-jitsu, they don't need martial arts, go sign up at a school. Most schools here give you 2 weeks for free. Try it for 2 weeks. And the money thing, I'm sorry, it's just not an excuse, because $90, $100 a month. Okay, well, don't go to that Starbucks, 5 days a week, or don't eat out every day. There's a will, there's a way, and honestly, a lot of these schools will work with you anyways. Yeah. But the big thing is just the money. It's not an excuse, and I would just really encourage them to go. I don't care how old you are, start on that path, because even a white belt with 3 months of experience, they stand a substantially higher chance of surviving that street fight than somebody that doesn't, even against an athletic opponent, in my opinion.
No, that would be my opinion as well. A white belt, like you said, with 3 months of experience, yeah. And the thing is, if you haven't been in any fights, I feel like, well, you and I have been talking about this the whole episode now, man, is go to a jiu-jitsu class, because you're going to have a fight when you go. And you're going to experience what it's like. You don't need to go and pick fights with bums on the street.
No, you don't. And the other thing, I tell a lot of these guys too. You're training at a gym, great. Don't discount guys that are out getting in street fights on a daily basis that grow up in bad neighborhoods. There's guys out there that could scrap, they can fight, and they're strong, they're athletic. You need to train for that. We call it that. Greg Thompson, he called it the worthy opponent. You train for that worthy opponent. That's going to be yourself. And maybe 50% better. And if you're always training for that, just like preparing for the worst, the best will come. You're usually setting yourself up for success. If it's your day, it's your day. But at least you've done everything you can to prepare for it. But train for that person that does not want to go to jail. Now, I hear a lot of law enforcement. They're like, I got into a fight today, and a lot of times it's not even someone that's trying to get away. A legitimate fight, is something, as something completely different. That's that worthy opponent that's trying to take it to you. And you're going to get hit, but guess what? You've been hit in jiu-jitsu or practice. You've been hit in boxing, wrestling, slammed. It's not that big of a deal. You recover. But you don't want the first time you get punched in the face to be in a street fight, because it's going to be a shocker.
Oh, yeah.
Happens, especially without gloves on.
Yeah. What do you think is better for the street? Gi or no gi jiu-jitsu? Man,
it's
a tough question. I know.
That's a tough question, and anyone that comes from especially the old school background, if I was to say no gi, they'd probably want to kill me. But I honestly do think the gi, because it's already simulated clothing on you. Some of this stuff is you can apply, and some of it won't, depending on what type of clothing. Are they wearing sleeves, or they have short sleeves? Are they shirtless or not? But there's so many times, unless you're fighting naked people constantly, I think that I think wearing the gi certainly has its application. And one of the guys who actually kind of started the jiu-jitsu program at our agency, he ended up retiring. Now he's the chief of police at another department here. Very, very high level, good black belt. He was big on getting in and trying a lot of these chokes now with the t-shirts on and seeing what chokes are going to work on thinner t-shirts. Because like I said, I'm in Florida, so we're not wearing typically thick clothing. For us, we bring out the thick clothing when it hits 50 degrees. But other places, it's most of the time we're 80 plus degrees here, so we're wearing thinner stuff, tank tops, and a lot of that stuff will rip if you grab it. So he really played around a lot with stuff on bundling the clothing up more so it's not going to tear, and figuring out which chokes with clothing are going to work if it's justified. But yeah, I think to answer your question, I think gi, if you had to pick, in a lot of ways, I agree that it can make you a little more technical in some regard.
Yeah.
I know guys that are they hate training in the gi. It's because it's uncomfortable. I think it's what it comes
and it's
down
hot too. It's
hot.
Yeah.
It's hot as hell.
At the same point, though, grabbing a pair of jeans and doing a flower sweep, or like you're saying with the T-shirts, and I'm waiting for the day where I can find something around me where guys want to throw on a pair of gosh damn jeans and a T-shirt and do the full gi in just that. I think it would be the best for the street.
Yeah. That's a good point too, and just having guys come in and train with whatever they're going to normally wear at work. There's a lot of merit to that. It's just a lot of people don't want to do that. But at the end of the day, we figure out why are we training in jiu-jitsu? Are we doing it for or whatever martial art? Are we doing it? Are we professional athletes? Well, no, I'm not a professional athlete, but I am paid to enforce the law, and jiu-jitsu is a tool that helps me do that. So I need to kind of forge that tool in a sense that it supports the job. I'm not competing at high levels in jiu-jitsu and trying to win tournaments and stuff. So I'm using it more for self-defense, and like you're talking about, you can tailor it towards that.
And this is something that's good to bring up because, our audience here is a really interesting mix of characters. We got a lot of military, police, security, but then we've got a lot of sheepdogs too. We've got just a lot of civilian guys who are looking to protect their self, their family, their community. And, they're thinking, all of this cop stuff is dope. Like, I can get a whole lot from this, but I'm a civilian out here. Maybe I'm not even carrying a gun, depending on where I live.
Yeah.
What should I best be focusing on in order to protect myself and my family? If I'm not walking around strapped up with a gun or baton or anything like that.
I mean, even watching some of your content, I think the big thing is your SA or situational awareness. That's number one, because a lot of times that's going to keep you out of bad situations, and also you're kind of you're setting yourself up for success from the get-go. Whether it be you're with your family and you're pulling into a gas station and you circle the pumps first while you look at the store to make sure it's not being robbed or there's no sketchy people hanging out. Just basic stuff like that can help out a lot. And then you figure out, I think, where you spend most of your time and where your vulnerable points are. So if you travel a lot for work and you're out of a vehicle, have you ever trained to fight out of your vehicle or how to fight back into your car? Have you ever trained fighting in the vehicle on how to close distance, minimize space and get out? I think you kind of have to tailor your combative system to your lifestyle, really. For example, the air marshals, they train fighting on planes. That's where they spend the majority of their time. They're not taking down rooms or houses or anything like that. But I guarantee, I've done some training with them before. They know the inside of the airplane like no one else does, and they can tell you the best fighting techniques that are going to work on there.
Interesting.
Yeah,
no, that's well said. Is you have to tailor your fighting techniques or your training rather to what your purpose is and what you're doing. And if you're not doing what you do or special operations guys, then you don't need to spend a lot of time working with a long gun and stacks of guys, although it is cool. At the same point, for you guys, you don't necessarily need to spend as much time focusing on unarmed combatives as you do going in with a team of guys and, doing all of that SWAT team stuff. So it really just does, I think, depend on what you're doing. So let me kind of round things out here. And we're living in very interesting times, as you're obviously aware. And we're in the midst of a global pandemic combined with civil unrest at this point. Things have kind of started to take a turn here. What should guys be thinking about at this point as far as if they really wanted to start beefing up their home security and their personal security a little bit? Could you give us any tips from your law enforcement background?
Yeah, I think the big thing that often gets overlooked is, having a baseline of some basic medical training, even as simple as how to apply a tourniquet, stuff like that can and will save your life or another citizen's life or someone in your family's life. I think that is key. I think some basic medical training, and then also really dissecting and knowing, like, have a plan for your family. If you have a family, or even if you're by yourself, have a plan, and also knowing your home. That's a big thing that a lot of people kind of neglect. And like one of the things we do, like, I've worked with different people that, they have these home defense weapons, like, shotgun, that's going to be the best weapon for your home defense. And a lot of people argue that. And it's just a lot of this personal preference, but like, well, let's take your shotgun to the range and let's check the spread pattern on it first at the longest distance that you're going to shoot in your house. Let's measure, what's the furthest point in your house that you would possibly engage somebody. Now let's go out to the range and see what your spread pattern on your shotgun's looking like, and see, is it going to be safe to shoot that in your house if you have a family member in another room. So really knowing the environment that you would have to protect yourself or your family, and then tailoring everything else towards that, and just having a plan really is the big thing. And then, baseline medical, because, even, with this pandemic and stuff that's going on and the civil unrest, these hospitals, if they get overrun, they're being forced now into positions where they're having to triage who lives and who dies.
So we lost connection real quick, probably for the the riots and the space aliens and everything coming down upon us right now. But John, you were in the middle of saying how it's really important to learn some basic medical skills right now because of the pandemic, especially, and that hospitals actually have been, triaging patients and turning some non-serious or less serious stuff away. And for us to be able to get kind of up to snuff as much as we can, at least with stopping the bleeding and things like that, would be a really good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the baseline, just being able to take care of yourself medically, and a lot of that even comes from taking care of yourself, from a physical fitness standpoint too. But that's a whole nother rabbit hole that you can go down. But yeah, the medical and just being prepared. There's a lot of people that people kind of joke and sometimes make fun of these preppers. But yeah, if you want to learn how to really get prepared and take care of yourself, take some of these courses that are offered on how to prep and how to survive for days and weeks on end. Even just in an urban environment, there's so much out there that you can learn from people, and basic skills that are kind of forgotten. How to fish. You have access to water. Go fish, catch yourself fish. Hunt. How to hunt. How to purify water, and again, just your basic medical stuff. Then from there, if you're in an area that allows concealed weapons, take that type of training seriously. Marksmanship training, just some basic trade craft. Like I've seen you put some good stuff out there. It's all 100% on point. And then just your situational awareness as well. And sometimes, if you can get out of a situation, don't let your ego get the best of you, because you might have your family with you. And a lot of times it's better to take a tactical retreat, if you will, and just get out of that situation, because, even if you end up winning, you might end up facing legal consequences. Even if you're justified, still you're going to drag yourself through a ringer. And then also, your family, you're potentially exposing them or loved ones to dangerous situations that you can just avoid.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Now, before we start rounding things off here, did I see that you went through some type of urban seer or something like that?
Yeah, we had a group of actually some SF guys that came and put on a free pro bono course for us for a week. It was really good, and they went over. And a lot of this stuff is applicable for a lot of the people that work in undercover capacities. And in fact, remind me to touch on a recent scenario that happened where it could have turned bad, and some of this stuff could have been taught. But what I was really impressed with that they showed and taught extensively on were a lot of the restraint escapes, whether it be your zip ties, your flex cuffs, your handcuffs, your duct tape, different types of ropes, and just things that you don't hear about happening a lot to like law enforcement personnel, but it does happen there. And I can name off the top of my head 5 different scenarios that have happened where either there was a plan to kidnap an undercover or it has happened. And these are skills. It's like you never need it till you need it, and they did a really good job at teaching a lot of that stuff. And a lot of the stuff was shooting from unorthodox positions, like if you're getting stuffed into a vehicle, like just different things until you train it, you just don't think about. And it was really cool being exposed to a lot of that stuff that those guys are using in real world application. Why would we not try and pick up some of that stuff? And it was really good content that they provided to us. But there was a situation where here and it's still, I can't speak too much about it, and I wasn't directly involved in it, but I know the guy personally, where he undercover was actually had met with somebody a couple times to do some deals. I believe it was for heroin and some firearms. And on one of the occasions, him and his buddies decided they were going to jack this guy and they're going to kidnap him, being the undercover, not knowing he was a law enforcement. And thankfully, he was able to engage the guy successfully and neutralize him. And then there was the vehicle that the bad guy arrived with was a van. And in that van, there were the restraints, shackles, and also a hood they were going to put over his head. He was going to legitimately be kidnapped and potentially killed. So you never need it till you need it. And those type of skills are good even just for your average citizen. I want my child to know how to potentially escape out of a trunk if they're stuffed into a trunk, or how to get out of restraints or handcuffs. I think it's important for people to know, the right people to know. And how do you vet that? That's a whole other aspect, because you don't want bad guys learning this stuff, and some of them do know this stuff obviously too. But hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that it's you bring up a couple of great points there. Is number one, for law enforcement or even security guys, if you're carrying a pair of cuffs, to know how to shim your way out or get out in some respect would probably be a very good idea.
Well, there was an incident in Florida where there was a deputy that was placed into, this is recent, it happened at a jail actually, where he was placed into his own handcuffs. And can't get too much into it, but that's a terrible situation to be in. And having a skill set to at least be able to give yourself a fighting chance, why would you not want to know that? The training's out there. You just have to seek it out.
Yeah, and that's been kind of the whole theme of our podcast tonight, is the training is out there. You just have to seek it out. And I don't care who you are, whether you're a civilian, whether you're, EMT, paramedic, whatever it is, police, you need more training. And it can never hurt, really. It can only help. So
yes, especially if you're just you're an American traveling abroad, and with your family, some of these basic skill sets could potentially save you or a loved one's life, really, especially in the times that we're in now, and depending on where you're traveling, it's very important.
Appreciate bringing that up, because coincidentally, and we didn't talk about this offline, just so everybody knows, I literally am just in the process of putting out Travel Safety for Americans 2.0, 4 hours of nothing but how to travel safely, blend into environments, go ahead, a little bit of, escaping from illegal restraints, things like that. Guys, it was shot literally all over the world, Middle East, Asia, parts of the world where, you might need to know about this stuff. So I would highly advise everyone, go check out www.gutterfightingsecrets.com if you haven't already, and stand by because that's going to be coming out within the next 2 weeks, and you don't want to miss it. While we're in the middle of a shameless self-plug here, can I ask you, John, how guys can get in touch with you if they want to, talk more, know more, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And if anything, I'll give my information, but then, especially for the law enforcement personnel, I encourage, especially if you're on some type of team that's doing entries into houses, like whether it's a fugitive apprehension team or a SWAT team, the SOCP stuff, not to give a plug to that, I'm a full believer. I mean, it's time, it's tried and tested. You have to train this stuff because the environments that you're going into with the furniture, confined spaces, wearing kit, body armor, you need solutions to a lot of these problems. And I train a lot with other teams as well, and no one's really thinking about this stuff until it happens, and then it's always an afterthought. It doesn't need to be an afterthought. So I could put you in contact with a lot of these different groups because I'm big on, I'm a small fish in a big pond. So if it's something I can't help you with, I'd be happy to try and steer you towards different classes maybe I've taken that I believe in, or put you in contact with some of these instructors, or I'll help you if I can as well. But I'm on Instagram, and I'm also, my email, which I'm happy to give out as well, is the letter J, my middle name Rex, R-E-X, my last name Kirkland, Kirkland @gmail.com. So it's jrexkirkland@gmail.com. And then also on Instagram under Side Control Tactics. And we came up with that just as a way to basically just be a filter for information that goes out to different law enforcement or military or law-abiding citizens that want to protect themselves better. Just try and put out some content for you guys, and if anything, make recommendations for different schools that we've vetted, that we've been through, that will help you out as well. So, and again, that's under a Side Control Tactics on Instagram. So,
you guys, I would highly recommend that you check out Side Control Tactics. I don't deal with people that I don't agree with what they're saying, or in some way think that they're on point. I don't bring them onto the podcast. So it's, generally speaking, a pretty safe bet. If they're on this podcast, they're legit, but I can reassure you that John is very legit. His resume that I was reading, I literally couldn't read some of the stuff that was on there, and it is impressive, guys. Yeah, but John, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, bro. It's been fun.
It was an honor. Thank you for having me on, and I appreciate everything that you're doing and the stuff that you're putting out for people as well, because it's much needed, and it's very much appreciated. Thank you again. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure's been all mine, sincerely, man. Guys, until next time, please remember that you are your first and last line of defense. Don't joke around about that. We're serious about this. You guys need to stay safe out there. Don't take any risk you don't have to. Until next time, this has been Will Sherlin with Gutter Fighting Secrets and John Kirkland with Side Control Tactics, reminding you once again to stay safe. Thanks again, John.
Thank you. Here we go.